We would like to calculate relative cluster distances. Here we're given the Virgo cluster and the Fornax cluster. Virgo cluster is on the left, it's cluster 1. Fornax cluster is on the right, it is cluster 2. We're given the difference in apparent magnitude between cluster 1 and cluster 2 is minus 0.23. We want to find the relative distance between cluster 1 Virgo and cluster 2 Fornax. So we're given an equation where apparent magnitude of 1 minus the apparent magnitude of 2 is equal to 5 log the distances of the two clusters, D1 divided by D2. Here we're looking at a graph, and on the graph vertical axis we have apparent magnitude, on the horizontal axis we have radial velocity, and we have two sets of clusters of galaxies data on the graph. One cluster data is in blue and the other cluster data is in black, and we drew average lines between them. If the two clusters of galaxies were located at the same distances, the two dots, the two graphs, the average lines would overlap. But since they don't overlap, one cluster is at a further distance than the other. One cluster could be larger than the other. The one that is further down on the graph is the one that's at the further distance. So in this case, the black dot data cluster of galaxy is further distance than the blue cluster data. So let's go ahead and solve. We want to solve for relative distances. So let's go ahead and plug in what we've got. M1 minus M2 is minus 0.23. So we're going to write minus 0.23 on the left. And then that is equal to 5 log D1 over D2. Now the first thing we need to do in this equation is we need to divide both sides by 5. So I'll change my color here. So we're going to divide by 5 on both sides. And this will get rid of the 5 on the right-hand side of the equation. So the only thing we'll be left with is log of D1 over D2 on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, we're going to be left with a minus 0.23 divided by 5. So let's go ahead and plug that in. So I went ahead and looked up a calculator on Google, and this is what I've got. We want to type in minus 0.23, and we want to divide that by 5. So we have minus 0.23, we want to divide it by 5. So we have divide by 5, we hit equal, and we get minus 0.046. So let's put that on the left-hand side, minus 0.046. And we'll put an equal sign between the two. So now we want to solve for D1 over D2. To do that, we need to take the inverse log of the minus 0.046. We have log of D1 over D2, so we need to take the inverse log of both sides. So we want to take the inverse log. So the log of something multiplied by the inverse log of it, and the same thing on the left-hand side. Inverse log this will just leave us D1 over D2 on the right-hand side because inverse log and log cancel each other out. So we need to take the inverse log of minus 0.046. Well, we've got the value already in there, so we need the inverse log. So we take inverse and then the log. Oh, we don't like that, so let's clear it out. Minus 0.046. Inverse log of parentheses minus 0.046. 0.046 out of parentheses equals, and we have a value of a 0.89. We can see that it's 899. This 9 rounds up, so 89 rounds up to 90. So we have 0.90. So you can leave it like this. D1 divided by D2 is 0.90, or you can write it as D1 is equal to 0.90 of D2. So this is telling you that the cluster galaxy 1 is at a shorter distance than cluster galaxy 2. And since 1 is Virgo, Virgo is closer to us than Fornax.